The Tennessee Titans met with quarterback prospect Shedeur Sanders over the weekend, and it sounds like it could be a perfect fit. I'll explain why on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans meeting with Shedeur Sanders at the Shrine Bowl. We got a lot of great information about his meeting with the Titans. Also, we're going to connect some dots between what Brian Callahan was talking about last week and what Shedeur Sanders can bring to the table now. And finally, I'll just explain why, looking at the final four teams in the NFL this year, I still have Cam Ward as QB1 for me. But before we dive into it, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. And speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. And if you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one because there's a lot of great all-season content ahead with the draft and free agency and roster moves. There's always breaking news during the all-season, and I'm going to cover it year-round for free here on the Locked On Titans podcast. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. But with that being said, the Shedeur Sanders meet and greet. So the Tennessee Titans went to the East-West Shrine Bowl this weekend. They got to meet with Shedeur Sanders. There was a 15-minute meeting and a throwing session. There was a longer meeting behind closed doors that teams get to have at these all-star games for college events. That's a big part of going. Of course, you want to see the practice and you want to see these players play and compete and all of that, but really you get to have the meetings with these players and you get to have these touch points with the players where you get to figure out who they are as people. Brian Callahan can know everything there is to know about Shedeur Sanders from the tape, but Brian Callahan has never personally got to know Shedeur Sanders to know whether he would trust him to take him as the number one overall pick in the draft. So these meetings are incredibly important. And that's exactly what happened. And as a matter of fact, according to Jim Wyatt, the Titans got some extra time with Shedeur Sanders because the Chicago Bears didn't have their meeting because they already have their quarterback. So the Titans got a little bit of extra time with Shedeur Sanders, time that they desperately need. And according to Teron Davenport from ESPN and Jim Wyatt from Titans.com, sounds like Shedeur Sanders made a great impression early on. Teron Davenport said that he made a good impression with the Titans. They really like his personality. They find him very, very mature. It sounds like not only were the Titans impressed, Brian Callahan talked about his maturity and his poise. And we'll talk about how Brian Callahan feels about quarterbacks in general, and then how that compares to Shedeur Sanders and what he said about Sanders this week here in just a moment. And you could really connect some dots there. But it really, at this time, most of the drama would be, does Shedeur Sanders like the Tennessee Titans? Would he want to come to the Tennessee Titans? People have that thought that his dad would force him to where he wants him to go, and that wouldn't include coming to the Tennessee Titans. But Shedeur Sanders, according to Jim Wyatt's recount here, said that meeting with the Titans was fun. Quote, it was truly exciting that I was able to get in and meet with the Titans, and they were able to ask questions and understand me. Now, of course, Shedeur Sanders is going to play nice. He's not going to come out and crush the Titans or anything like that and their meetings that they had. But he also said that he really loved Nashville. He said, quote, I love it. Quote, I know the city and I heard a lot of great things about the city, and I obviously see a lot of great things about their fan base. So I know it's real fun there. I would love it to be drafted by the Titans, and I would be thankful. So he says all of that stuff, and that's the stuff that he should be saying. I mean, you got to take him at his word at this point in time. Who wouldn't want to be the number one overall pick? And Nashville is known as a very fun city. And look, the Titans fan base, it's been a struggle the last few years, but when things are rocking, the Titans have a very devoted fan base, as I know personally. So it all makes sense that he had a good meeting with the Titans. They got to spend that time together. Now, here's the thing. Some people still think that Deion Sanders, like I was mentioned, his father would maybe force him away from Tennessee. Now, we talked last week, Deion Sanders went on a podcast and literally said that he loves Tennessee and he doesn't have a problem with them drafting his son at all. And funny part is he was FaceTiming Shedeur Sanders during the meeting with the Titans. And the Titans came out and said that they're welcoming. Shedeur said that they love the fact that he has a great relationship with his father. And that's something that Shedeur Sanders talked about with the general media. Saw this clip all over the place of him basically saying, like, I don't know why my parents being involved in wanting the best for me is a problem. You know what I mean? And I totally agree with them there. I think anyone who has kids would tell you if their son could grow up to be the number one quarterback in the country and they could coach him on their way there, like, any father would take the opportunity to do that. You know what I mean? So the fact that it gets used as a negative against him, I think that's not quite fair, in my opinion. Although, you know, you do admit that having Deion Sanders as your father does bring extra media attention. Certainly, Shedeur Sanders being on the Titans would bring some additional media attention to the team in general. Along with that, I saw somebody compare it to like the Ball family in basketball. Now, obviously, Deion Sanders way more qualified to be in the limelight with his Hall of Fame career than LeVar Ball, who essentially never accomplished anything but being the father of three famous kids. You know what I mean? Like, either way, though, I see the comparisons of there is an increased media attention that comes with the family relationship and the family dynamic, because that's a very good story that we all resonate with. So I think that it's good that Shedeur Sanders kind of put that stuff to bed. And on the Titans end, he even said, yeah, the Titans love that I have a good relationship with my father. And as a matter of fact, I think it helps Shedeur Sanders because he's more prepared for an NFL life. He's more prepared for the rigors of being a professional athlete because his father has gone through those trials and tribulations. So I think not only is Shedeur Sanders being the son of Deion Sanders and that relationship and their situation, for me personally, not only is it not a detriment, it is an enhancement to Shedeur Sanders' case. I love having that family dynamic, so you know what it's like to be a professional athlete and you have someone giving you good advice who's been through it and been there. I actually like that. So the Titans, this is the first real chance that they've gotten to sit down and get to know Shedeur Sanders. And obviously everyone's playing nice and going to say the right things here, but it would be a red flag if they said something opposite of what we heard. So at least that's a box that gets checked. And hopefully for the Titans, you know, they get the information that they need going forward. We did hear rumors from the Shrine Bowl that the Giants have given Shedeur Sanders a guarantee that they'll take him at number 3 if he's available. And that's why he didn't participate in practice or participate in the throwing session and all that stuff. He kind of just came and did the meetings. If that's true or not, I guess we're never going to know for certain, but would be interesting. To me, if the Titans like either one of these quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, they have to take them number 1. You can't play around and try to make some kind of crazy move where you trade back and still get them. If you love one of the guys, have the conviction, take them at number 1. You know, I have said, and I'm going to continue to say, and I'll say at the end of the episode, that Cam Ward is still my number 1 quarterback. If the Titans go quarterback, I would prefer Cam Ward, but also something I've said since during the season, I think Shedeur Sanders is a perfect fit for what Brian Callahan wants, not only in his offense, but as a player. And what we heard from Brian Callahan about Shedeur Sanders this weekend, and then what we heard from Brian Callahan earlier last week about what he looks for in a quarterback, well, it's hard not to put those two things together. Do want to let you guys know, though, that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do, and that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Again, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, 25 years as a Tennessee Titans fanatic, covered the team for USA Today, Sports Illustrated, 6 seasons as the host here on the Locked On Titans podcast. I got the Tic Tac Titans film channel going, which I'm making some improvements to the technology of things to try to make the film even better over on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel. But make sure that you get subscribed there and get ready for free agency and draft film content to go along with our conversations here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, it is difficult to not connect the dots when you read some of the things that Brian Callahan said earlier this week, and then when you read some of the things that Brian Callahan said about Shedeur Sanders this weekend. You could kind of see some connective tissue between the comments here. And first, we look at comments from Brian Callahan from earlier this week in that great interview he did with Easton Freeze from A to Z Sports. Really great interview. Encourage you guys to check that out. Easton does really good work. But you look at some of the comments that Brian Callahan said in that interview about the quarterback position. Just want to remind you, quote, one of the biggest ones that I see right now on teams that have good quarterbacks I've been around is, and it's going to sound a little bit strange, but what is their nervous system like? Like, what is it? What do they look like when things break down? How do they operate when the pocket is muddy? How do they operate under critical duress and critical pressure? Those are the things that I look at. How does their brain essentially respond? He said, there's 3 things that I look at: decision-making, timing, and accuracy. That's quarterback play in the NFL. Talked about the nervous system that works under pressure. Can they make good decisions? Can they throw on time? Most importantly, are they accurate? The quarterbacks you see still in the playoffs, that's how I look at the position. I think those are the most important things. So he talked about the nervous system, their mental makeup, from the neck up stuff. Talked about decision-making, timing, accuracy. Okay? Those are the things that he's mentioning here. How they work under pressure. How they handle themselves, their poise in big moments. You know what I mean? Those are the things that he mentioned. Well, then what you do, you come to a great article from Jim Wyatt, TennesseeTitans.com, over the weekend with Brian Callahan's comments on Shedeur Sanders. He says, quote, you can tell he's been raised right. He's mature. He has a really poised way about him. And he seems like a really good kid. I enjoy talking to him. And you can tell he's a guy that's been in the spotlight. He knows how to handle himself. And he added, he's been paid money, so he has a financial perspective. It was a really good first impression. He continued, quote, the thing that stands out most is his toughness. He took some pretty big shots and he kept rolling. He can stand in the pocket and deliver it. He can move and create a little. He has some ability to move out of the pocket, and he does create on his own. He's not a high-end dynamic scrambler necessarily, but he's productive when he does, and he has a really good feel for anticipation and timing. You can tell he's been coached in that regard. Those things show up on tape. I mean, he's telling you right there. Like, we heard some of the poise, timing. Talked about maturity. He's been through things. The spotlight has been on him. What about in the big moments? What do you do? So all of the things that you're hearing Brian Callahan talk about as important are really the things that Shedeur Sanders has the best qualities of. Shedeur Sanders is the most accurate quarterback in the class. Now, I will even be critical and say he also has the most screen passes of any quarterback in the class. It's like 21%, I believe. So obviously that's going to boost your accuracy numbers when you do that. But you look at the on-target percentages, and he's still towards the top of the class at all levels. So it's fair to say he's the most accurate. Timing, Brian Callahan specifically said his anticipation and his timing. And when you think about what Brian Callahan wants from the quarterback position, and it's that precision, go back to the comments about Will Levis from the A to Z article, where he said, Will is not a precision timing passer at this point. And then he goes and then he says about Shedeur Sanders that he is. And he has a really good feel for anticipation and timing. You can tell he's been coached in that regard. Those are the things that show up on tape. So he's literally saying Will Levis doesn't do these things well right now. These are the things that I care about the most. And this guy does them. This is why I've been saying since October. When did we give up on the Titans having a good season and start talking about the draft? It was October, right? In October, I said I think Shedeur Sanders is the best fit for Brian Callahan's offense. Now, the easy response to that, which I won't argue with, see, I do the show by myself, guys. I try to give you both perspectives. There's no co-host here to give so I try to play both sides and give you both representations of how you could look at something. You could look at it as that you're supposed to take the best talent available, and the coach should fit his system around the best talent. Not the coach system requires you to grab this certain guy, but the reality is it's always a mixture of it. You know, Brian Callahan has a vision of what he wants to do on offense, and if you give him somebody that doesn't necessarily fit that vision, when there's somebody available who maybe just be a touch less talented, but is a much better fit, maybe in the ultimate that results in a better outcome. You know what I mean? But it's a worthy debate. I will say, do you take a guy with more talent or do you take a guy who fits the system better? But regardless, I'll answer that question honestly here in just a few minutes. But regardless of that, the point remains that Shedeur Sanders is the best fit for what Brian Callahan sees as a quarterback. Think of some of the quarterbacks that Brian Callahan has worked with. Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, Joe Burrow. None of those guys are overly mobile. You know what I mean? Like Burrow has, I call Burrow a pocket Jedi. Burrow has incredible pocket movement, some of the best pocket manipulation in the entire NFL. Period. He's incredible the way he slithers in and out of the pocket. But he's not overly mobile outside of that. You know what I mean? Like I think we all have an understanding of what I mean when I say that, you know, Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, Joe Burrow, these aren't guys with great mobility. So from that standpoint, maybe Brian Callahan as a coach does not value that overt mobility as much as maybe a different quarterback or a different coach or a different system would, which makes Shedeur Sanders' limitations as an all-out athlete and with the arm strength and the velocity that he can throw with, it makes those limitations less bad, less punitive in Brian Callahan's eyes because he doesn't need those to run his prime, perfect, utopian system. The best version of Brian Callahan's system, an elite version of his system, does not require that overt mobility and athleticism. So we have to take that into account. And again, from the comments that we hear from Brian Callahan earlier in the week to the comments that we hear when he's describing Shedeur Sanders, there's a lot of connective tissue there. And I think that, you know, some will call it a reach, certainly could be, but I think we would be naive and foolish to not at least examine how these comments compare and how we can connect those dots together. I think it's pretty clear here how you can, you know, take those and take that and put them together and see the vision for what Brian Callahan is looking for. But at the end of the day, I still prefer Cam Ward. I'm going to explain why. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it even easier to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live bet feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. I love the FanDuel Sportsbook app from that standpoint. Visually, it is by far the best in the industry. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that is icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about the Titans meeting with Shedeur Sanders, why I think Sanders is a perfect fit for Brian Callahan's system. But now I want to make my point that Cam Ward is still my number one quarterback, and I want to use the Final Four in the NFL as some evidence as to why. But before I dive in, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL. I host the Locked On NFL show. Look, I'm recording this before the conference championship game so that I can have it out on time for all of you guys. But by the time that you hear this, those games could be over and we will know who is in the Super Bowl. Well, I'm going to be breaking down who is in the Super Bowl, what happened in these conference championship games on the Locked On NFL podcast. It's free. It's on all the platforms that you use to listen or watch Locked On Titans. So go subscribe over there. It would help me out. And it's that time of year. Let's get that NFL news rolling. But with that being said, I'm still Cam Ward as QB1 for me. Now, I will reiterate again, my preferred outcome in the draft is to trade down from number 1 to number 3 with the Giants. Let the Giants come up and take Shedeur Sanders. Browns take Cam Ward, and the Titans take Abdul Carter. That would be the ideal outcome, with the Tennessee Titans getting a first-round pick in 2026, the Tennessee Titans getting probably a third-round pick in 2025, and then maybe a second-round pick next year as well, just collecting more top 100 picks with a first overall. I don't think the Titans are going to get a ton, dropping back 2 spots, even if it's to go up and get a quarterback. But that trade package, getting more picks, combined with getting Abdul Carter, I think is the smartest path. But if the Titans go quarterback, I'm not against it. I'm not going to be mad about it. It's not like do what I think is the right move. But if they believe in one of these quarterbacks, take them. Take them. If you believe in them, take them. Because you don't get a lot of these chances. So if you truly believe in one, you got to take them. Period. And I'll be fine with that. And I'll support that guy. I just have my concerns, which with any prospect, if you're honest, if you are being honest, you can't know with 100% certainty that they'll be good. Nobody knows. You can't know that. It's all about what are the reasons it could not work and what are the likelihoods that those things make it not work. You have to look at this from a negative perspective, in my opinion. Yes, you believe this guy will be good, but what does it look like if it goes wrong? And to me, I am just skeptical of these two quarterbacks and the amount of things that could lead to it going wrong. Okay. So that's why I prefer the other way, but I'm willing to give it a shot. But if they do it, I want it to be Cam Ward. Look at the Final Four in the NFL right now. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. All of those players, while at varying degrees of athleticism and varying degrees of mobility, they are incredible players out of structure. When things break down and you got to make a play, when there's a free rusher coming in the pocket and you got to make a play and you got to avoid them and you got to keep things going, when your team needs you to do something special, you have to deliver it. And Jalen Hurts, while not being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, I don't think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I think he's like 10 to 15, somewhere in there, right? 11 to 15, somewhere in there when he's healthy and playing good. I think that's where Jalen Hurts is. But his ability to create out of structure and get away from pressure and make plays downfield, like his ability to make those special plays, negates and counteracts the fact that maybe he's not as consistent down to down. Maybe there are certain things he doesn't do as well as other quarterbacks, but he has the ability to make those special plays, and that's what makes the Eagles offense special at the end of the day. Yes, Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams, great players, great offensive line. That's why the down-to-down consistency of Jalen Hurts doesn't crush them, because they have other players who can step up. But remember back in that Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, remember in these runs for Philadelphia, when they need big plays and they need special moments, Jalen Hurts is able to create that. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are the two best quarterbacks in the entire NFL, and they do that at probably the highest level that we've ever seen it done in NFL history. Who is better out of structure and out of the schedule of the play and outside the timing than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? I mean, them and Lamar Jackson are probably the best to ever do it. And they're the three best quarterbacks of this era, along with Joe Burrow, who we talked about his magic earlier, even without the athleticism. But Jaden Daniels, maybe the best rookie quarterback season ever. Probably for sure, especially if you're listening to this right now and Jaden Daniels went to the Super Bowl, is by far the best rookie quarterback season ever. Look at what he's been able to do with his special abilities after the play breaks down and then his mobility to run. So look at the four quarterbacks and think, regardless of how good the roster is around them, that special mobility and ability to create out of structure is what takes those teams to the next level. You can have a really, really, really good team, but what takes those teams to the next level is the quarterback's ability to be special and create out of structure. And who gives you that? Out of these two quarterbacks, who really gives you that? It's Cam Ward. Cam Ward has the better arm. Cam Ward has the playmaker instincts. Cam Ward has the mobility in the pocket. Cam Ward does come with more risk. Is he as great of a fit for what Brian Callahan wants to do? No. But I think the best version of a quarterback is one who can do the timing and accuracy and stuff that Cam Ward can do, while also having that instinct, which is what Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are. That's why they're elite, because they're able to play with that timing and that accuracy and that rhythm and that pocket passer mentality. But then when they need to, they can also make the huge play in the big moment with special abilities that not most human beings in the NFL have. And the only quarterback that has that level of upside is Cameron Ward. So, look, we're going to dissect and dive into and debate these quarterbacks ad nauseum for the next 4 months. 3 months now. Wow, here we go. The year is rolling already. But we're going to debate them back and forth. And I admit, like any other draft evaluator out there who looks at guys, my opinions on guys will fluctuate. There are players that I like today that I won't like as much. I'll cool on them. There are players who I was okay with, and then they have great measurables and they run great times and they have reports of great meetings. And that player will go up, in my opinion, and I'll feel more confident in them higher in the draft. And my opinions will change, as will most other people who talk about the draft. But I have a hard time seeing my opinion change on Cam Ward over Shedeur Sanders, because there's nothing that can happen in the next 3 months outside of an off-the-field thing that is going to change the fact that Cam Ward just has more special upside. And if I'm taking a quarterback at number one and I'm taking a chance on one of these two quarterbacks in this class, I am going for the special talent. I think that Shedeur Sanders is probably Derek Carr at the NFL level. He's probably a Derek Carr level player. When Derek Carr was at his best, he was like, 9 to 14 level quarterback. And you can win with that. You can win with that in the NFL. You can win a Super Bowl with that if the rest of your roster is incredible. The problem is, to get an incredible roster, if the Titans were able to do that, that probably starts with trading down with the first overall pick and collecting picks. To be able to build the level of roster that could win a championship with Shedeur Sanders is very, very difficult. So give me the special upside. That's what I would be looking for. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's going to be a crazy off season. I got a lot of content planned for this week. We're going to dive into some of those Callahan comments from that great interview. We are going to look more at defensive possibilities. We're going to start to plan out the off season in terms of like cuts, roster moves, trades, things like that as we prepare for free agency. So it's February, folks. It is that time. It's time to set up the off season. Make sure that you're here with me every day. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.